Welcome to the weekly open mic call. We do this call because MSPs requested. They wanted to hear what's new with the platform, what bugs we fixed, and wanted to do a little R&D or rob and duplicate of automations that their peers are making. The most important reminder of all, Flow. I'm so excited about Flow. Who here is going to Flow? We're super excited. Like if we get, we were doing the math, if we get full attendance, which it looks like we will sell out, we'll have over, between vendors and MSPs, over 520 people at Flow. Last year, between the two groups, we had 220. So more than double the attendance from last year. Super excited. 100% of the Flow money just gets reinvested back into Flow. I do not want us to make any money from the event. Other things. Let me see, who am I going to call on? Ray, how many MSPs have been successful with automation but never asked a question?
Let me just look it up.
All right, Google it. ChatGPT.
As far as I can tell here, none.
Yeah, that's right. So one of the indicators that I have on whether or not an MSP will succeed at automation is if they think they're an expert. The best ones are the ones that think they don't know how to automate and ask a ton of questions. And then oddly enough, they become awesome at automation. So if you want to succeed, use your private channel, ask questions to the rock, use the public channels, ask questions to the MSP community, and you will succeed. Also, I haven't reminded folks this in a while. I was reviewing some account usage, and there are a number of you not taking advantage of time savings. To you as an engineer, an automation and the value it provides you, you know right off the top of your head. To the C-level execs within your MSP, they're being pulled in so many different directions and are doing so many different things. They need to be reminded about the value of automation, and that's the true value of time savings. It's not just the value of automation, but it's also the value of your work. You're the one making these automations. If you put time savings in there, you're basically advertising to your leadership the value of the automation work you've been doing. So did someone post a Flow link on where to register? Brian did. Thank you, Brian. All right, let's get this party started. Ash, what's up?
Thank you, Aaron. All right, so we are it's really fun. We've got a packed front of the house today, a bunch of internal demos. Don't want to keep us waiting. I'm actually going to just let us hop over to George because he's got some fun, engaging stuff to say, maybe.
Yeah, thanks, Ash. Just a quick couple of things from me. First of all, thank you to Austin and Aaron, who booked some time with me this week to book their little Workflow Wednesday community creations video. For anyone who hasn't heard of this already, this is just snagging a little bit of time with me to do a quick short video on some simple, straightforward workflows to help new partners recognize some of the cool things they can do. So I'm going to drop the link in the chat to snag some time on my calendar if anybody else is interested in helping out with that. Would love to see you. You do get some swag for helping out, and with Flow being only in a couple of weeks, if you do want to grab some time next week, you can come and see me directly down in Tampa for some additional goodies. So well worth your while grabbing some time with me next week. The other two things I wanted to call out once again was our business leaders focus group. So if you yourself are an MSP business leader, or you're working with a boss who wants to learn a little bit more about automation or have conversations more around business outcomes, ROI, how they're trying to implement automation as a service, all of those kind of business focused things, we do have a focus group, and I will drop the sign up form in the chat for folks to express interest in joining that as well. And then last but not least, this week we actually graduated our first onboarding cohort, which is where new partners are collaborating together almost in little classroom settings to help really ramp up their usage in Roost. And I just wanted to share this with the community because maybe if you're someone who's got started with Roost and kind of wants to reorientate yourself a little bit, maybe you feel like, you just need that reorientation and you prefer that collaborative group approach, that's something we can definitely facilitate. Or maybe you have a new staff member that you want to get up and running really, really quickly. We're happy to add you to that next cohort, which is kicking off in July. So if that's something you're interested in, just reach out to whoever your CSM is and they can get you added. So I'll drop those links in the chat now, and that's all from me this week. Back to you, Ashley.
Thank you, George. All right, so we're going to switch up the order here a little bit and jump over to Clea to give us our education updates next. I think so.
Sorry, mouth full. You caught me off guard, but I'll go ahead and drop the link to our weekly updates in the chat here. And then I shall share my screen. Whoopsies. All right, here we go. It's very hot here in Colorado, so my computer is acting accordingly. Here you all are. There's my Slack. Somewhere there is the training update page. Here we go. As always, we want to start with shout outs. So shout outs to Wesley, Christian, Drew, Julian, Chris, Dave, and Harris for passing the foundation certification. Shout outs to Dominic, Christian, Julian, Harris, maybe the same Harris from earlier. Apologies for any typos. Jerson, David, Graham, Esther, Manav, Ali, and Timothy for passing the clean automation certification. Why are you not on this list? Go join the ranks and get your certification. I'll show you where to find that in CluckU University. As always, we've got the CluckU Discord channel and office hours for support. For a little preview of what's new in CluckU. If you haven't noticed already, we've redesigned our homepage a little bit. We offer suggested courses to get starting with in this order from left to right. Set up your Roost environment with our onboarding courses, take automation basics, and then join the folks who are earning their fancy certificates by checking out our certification page along with various options that you can learn the stuff either live or self-paced. We've also updated this section below to feature our 3 latest courses, so check those out if you haven't already. And then you can find anything that you need across CluckU University. Make use of the filter options on the left-hand side, and just search for any old term, and it'll show you the corresponding courses there. We're going to run our simple automation contest until the end of this month, so fill out this form. I'll drop a link to that in the chat as well for a chance to earn some Roost swag. And in terms of new documentation, we've got new docs for court compliance event to PSA ticket crate, open text core endpoint protection crate, V2 of our ConnectWise PSA technician toolbox crate, and options filter feature documentation. So this is something that I'm still wrapping my head around, but if you have used option generators in Roost or you want some more options to filter in a form, there is a special tool that lets you do that, and it is documented with step-by-step instructions. Any questions, drop them in the chat and I'll monitor for feedback.
Thank you, Clea.
Thank you.
All right, now we are going to jump over to Daniel to kick us off on our product updates. And then Daniel, I'll let you pass to the demos.
That sounds great. Yeah, good news, everybody. You don't have to hear my funny Canadian accent for very long because other people are demoing. So what happened this week? We have a couple of new features to talk about, and then one that we're going to leak that should be coming next week, hopefully on Tuesday. But the latter two are going to be demoed by a couple people on our product and engineering team. So the first thing I'll talk about is we have optimized the actions pane of the workflow canvas. And I guess what people were experiencing there is some actions that had a lot of parameters, like 50 plus parameters, some PSA actions and that type of stuff. Those were causing lag because the form, I guess action form was re-rendering constantly. But we've optimized that, so you should no longer see that lag for actions with a lot of parameters. We've also improved, as Clea mentioned, we've improved the experience of setting options filtering in forms. We'll have James Kim demoing that shortly. And then as far as bug fixes, we didn't have a big release this week, so we have another release going out next week that's going to have a whole bunch of good, cool bug fixes in there. And then coming soon, we have the marketplace searchability improvements, which Brooke will be demoing, and which is coming hopefully on Tuesday. And then we have the workflow executions dashboard widget, which is still underway. You'll note that I have removed from here the coming soon section, the GraphQL action. That we still are supporting it. We're still trying to make improvements to it. But I will say that it's probably going to be an extended beta. If you are still looking for that, please contact us through the various means, your CS, your customer success manager, or support, and we can get that for you. But I just took it off the coming soon because it's probably going to be staying in beta for a little while. But with that said, I'm going to move things over to Brooke, who's going to show us some of the new marketplace searchability improvements. If you're there, Brooke.
Awesome. I am here. Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, I'm excited to walk you all through a tour of the new Crate Marketplace, which will be launching next week. So let me share my screen. Hopefully my internet behaves itself. Yeah, so you'll see that there is a new look and feel to the marketplace. And as a part of this tour, there are 3 key areas that I wanted to point out. The first of those is that you'll notice that there is a quick filter section so that you can filter on those crates that you've unpacked to your org. You can also filter on those crates which are new, so you no longer have to sort and identify which have been added by looking at the dates. I won't steal the thunder from Eric and Paul about the new crates, so we'll skip over that. But the second piece that I wanted to show to you all is around the filtering. So in terms of the filter options, we've categorized all of the crates in the marketplace according to these 5 categories. So you'll see that you can filter, say, by operational efficiency. And if you're curious as to what that entails, there's a bit of a description below. You can also filter by integration. So if I wanted to see those crates that included Halo PSA, you can do so accordingly. And then the third and last but not least is we've improved the searchability. So previously, we've extended that to not only look in the crate names, but also the crate descriptions. So if I wanted to look for permissions, you'll notice that it highlights where that search term shows up in the crate details, and it also shows up in the crate name. So as Daniel mentioned, we'll be looking to launch this next Tuesday. So thank you very much. Back to you, Daniel.
Thanks, Brooke. Next up we have James Kim, who's going to show off that new options filtering experience. If you're ready to go, James.
Yeah, let me share my screen. Okay. Yeah, I'll try to be quick. I have a lot of ground to cover, but I wanted to showcase options filter. We released it yesterday. So let me just go right ahead. With the drop-down field, there's a new button here called filter options. And this dialog kind of shows you two sections. On the left, it shows you the sort of default options that you have and what the outputting result will be if you were to apply a options filter, right? And you have three different sort of sections to view your data. I will go over all of these shortly, but let me just share how this would work. So with the simple version of an options filter, we use Boolean operators. So in this case, I have just a simple option with a label and a value. And let's say I want to filter out one of them, whichever contains the number 1, and I apply it. It reduces down to one option, right? So I know we can already do something like this in workflows, but this kind of options filter dialog allows us to leverage this without having to modify any workflows that you may have. So that's a very basic example. Let's try it with something more complicated. I have paired a workflow that generates no label. Just some random data that gets generated. If you look at the actual packed data here, it's a lot, you know. It does come with an ID and an email, but a bunch of metadata, maybe have some orders tied to this user that you care about, some profile information tags, whatever, right? And I want to filter this list. What we can do is add another rule. And if you look at popping up your accessor keys, it's going to generate what we call a JSON path sort of notation for accessing the values. So let's say I want to pick out based on the tags, right? I can take a look at the tags here, and maybe I want it to be only tags containing or equals premium, and that applies my filter. It reduced it down to 2 options now, where it came from 10. So that's kind of the basic use case of using Boolean logic here. You can obviously make it more complex by stacking different rules, setting your Boolean logic, or even grouping it as you need. And then we have Jinja, of course, that you might be more familiar with. With a Jinja filter, your goal is to return options, right? So let's just first take a look at the context of what we're being provided with. If you look at it, it gives you the source options, but also the trigger instance, which isn't super critical. But if I were to just return the context options, that'll just give me the original without any sort of modification. But let's filter this down. So I would say if premium was in my tags, try this out. So yep, this should have reduced it down to 2 again. It was the same filter, but using Jinja. You do have access to your org variables here. So if you need to make use of that, you can do that. You can also reference templates if you need. So that's also available here. But let me just go ahead and save the simple one, because I want to go ahead and show you the org context picker. So it's this box here. It's basically a method of setting the context on your form, right? So in my current context, James Test Organization, it's just going to render those 2 filters that I applied. If I were to go to a suborg it is still going to try and apply that filter. Oh, I didn't save. So let me go back and quickly create that options filter again. Wanted tags, premium. Okay, 2. Let me save this just to be sure. And in my current org, let's see. I get 2 options, right? Now, it's possible that in the context of your sub-organization, this differs. So what this is doing is it's configuring your preview to run under the sub-org. That's what I mean by the org context picker, right? We're choosing a sub-org to render this form in. We can already sort of do this if you have a form tied to a trigger and then go to that specific one, but now you can do it in the preview settings with this new little dropdown. Third, the org specific filter. So this is interesting in that, so if you look at the context of the options filter in this org, we can see that it's using the parent's options filter by default, right? This is what we set, but you can override this and tailor it to the org that you selected by just modifying it. So let's say instead of using this premium tag, I just want something that's active. So they should have filtered down to 8. It's using a different filter now. And then let me go ahead and save that. So it's going to say saved org-based options filter. Great. I'll preview it. It's using a different filter now. It's giving me 8 different ones. If I go back to my original one, it should still use the premium tag that I set. So as you can see, that's what I mean by org-specific filter here, where you select a preview org that you want and apply a tailored options filter. The last thing that I want to cover is org-specific overrides. So sometimes you may have in your sub-org like a synced forms, right? And we all know you can't really modify anything in a synced form because it's synchronized. You are not allowed to modify it, with the exception of options filter. So if you go to a synced form and click on filter options, you'll notice that instead of apply filter, it says override filter. It's very similar to how org-specific filter works, except we're in the context of a synced form now. So let's say I want a different rule. Make this false and save it here. And it's going to give me a toast that I've saved the overrides. I know I can't save it, but if I were to preview it, it's going to apply that options filter, even though I'm viewing a synced form. So those are the 4 things that I want to cover. Obviously, there's more to it. You can check out the docs. Any questions?
Yeah, when prod.
It's already in prod, right? So everybody can go and check it out.
That's Aaron's favorite answer.
Yes, that's the only answer.
Speaking about things that are in prod, let's go over to Eric for our marketplace update.
Sure, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I am posting a link in the chat if you want to take a look at the updates. I'll also share my screen. Hopefully you all can see that. I'm going to start with bug fixes. We've got a healthy number of them this week. We'll spare you reading all the details, but just to go through them quickly. We've got an update to the PSA create ticket sub workflow, ConnectWise PSA update ticket workflow, Halo PSA update ticket workflow. There's another one for Halo down here for create ticket. We've got an update for the Datto PSA update ticket workflow, SuperOps create ticket. We've addressed some coverage gaps for AV and EDR. There's an update for Freshdesk update ticket, export PSA ticket overview, Kaseya BMS update ticket workflow, and a ServiceNow update ticket workflow. So lots of things that we pushed this week to hopefully smooth out some bugs and issues. If you have any questions on the details of any of those, feel free to sort of raise them after I finish here, or you can always reach out separately. I'll go coming soon next. A couple things on the list here: a patch deployer and refactoring the sync last logged in info on the PSA asset crate. So those will be coming soon. And then most excitingly, we have a couple new crates this week. The OpenText Core Endpoint Protection crate ticket from file detection crate, and a nowhere alert to PSA crate. And I'm going to quickly pass to Paul to talk us through and maybe give a demo of one of those.
Hey everyone, this is Paul, and I'm going to go over these crates for you guys. Probably not going to do a live demo because I want to go over a few of these, but I'm going to go over everything. I will show the results and show you exactly how everything works. So some of the crates that we have are, I don't know if it was discussed last week, but we actually have the core compliance event to PSA ticket. We have the nodeware alert to PSA. We have OpenText Core Endpoint Protection create ticket from file detection, which used to be named WebRoot, which recently changed to the OpenText Core Endpoint Protection. So we'll start with the Quark one here. Let me share my screen here. All right, so a lot of stuff open here, but let's go ahead and start with Quark. So the Quark workflow works on a cron trigger. It's going to be ran every day, and it's going to pull data from 1 day ago. So it's going to check for compliance events for devices within Quark. So when you have Quark set up, you have basically a bunch of EDRs or RMM integrations set up, and it pulls all that data into one platform. And with this crate, any event that comes up, it's going to open a ticket automatically for those. This crate specifically is going to allow you to set it to either company or device, the reporting type here. Let me pull this up here. So this is going to be the initial setup form when you unpack this crate. Once you unpack this crate, you have a couple triggers. One's going to be this one, which is the form trigger, and then you have the cron trigger. You don't have to modify any of the trigger or any of the triggers, just and make sure they're enabled. Once you open this this form trigger here, it'll allow you to set up the ticket settings for this crate. So you can run through this once at the initial start after unpacking. And then you'll select your board ID and then whatever status you want. Based on the PSA, it could list different things. You can set the types as well if you want. And then you just hit submit. Once you hit this is going to create some org variables for you, so you don't have to manually do those. And then the crate will just run through. So that's Quark. Basically, we can actually pull that up too. Second. So this will go through, it'll list all the devices, and then it's going to list all the events. So right here is where it's set to pull the events created after one day. Once it gets these, depending on that setup that you set up through this form, it's going to either create one ticket for the whole company and list all the devices with all that devices within one ticket, or you can create multiple tickets with per device. And then that will be checked every day, and it'll just create tickets as the events come up each day. And that's basically that crate. The next crate is going to be the nodeware alert to PSA. It's almost the same as this type of crate. This crate, it's going to be, there's going to be a setup form as well, which will allow you to set up the statuses for that. And then when you run that, it's going to run a cron once a day, and it's going to check for critical vulnerabilities on the device. Let me get that one open too here. So this will pull the alerts for you. It'll run once per day and check for critical vulnerabilities. If there is critical vulnerabilities detected on the device, it's going to open a ticket. Once it runs every day, it's going to list all the tickets that are open. It'll go through each of those, and it'll automatically check to see if those vulnerabilities have been removed. If they have been cleared up or fixed, it's going to automatically close the ticket. If they haven't, it's going to update the ticket and keep it open. And that will continue to run every day and it'll only list tickets with vulnerabilities. So there won't be duplicate tickets or anything like that. And the last crate that we have is the OpenText Core Endpoint Protection Create Ticket from File Detection. So this is a pretty cool crate. It's going to work off detecting threats that come up on your computer, which is based on WebRoot itself. So if you were to run this and scan with WebRoot and you find a detection here, or you find a detection, you close this out, it's going to trigger the workflow right there, and it's going to run this, and it's going to create a ticket, and the ticket will look like the following here. It'll look like this, and this will be kept open until either the threat is removed within a 12-hour span, or if WebRoot, if you remove the threat and the scheduled scan comes back clean, it will close this ticket. If WebRoot removes the threat with the scheduled scan, it's going to close the ticket as well. If the threat remains after, the ticket's going to stay open, and then you'll have to basically take a look at the machine that's causing this issue, which will be listed up here, and manually remove the threat if needed. So how this works is, we'll go through the results here. It's going to trigger, and then it's going to list the tickets, any open tickets. So if there's already a ticket for this, it's not going to create a duplicate ticket. It's going to update that specific ticket. If there isn't a ticket, it'll create a ticket. And then it's going to check every 5 minutes for basically check to see if that threat has been cleaned up. If it is cleaned up, this is going to stop. It's going to then close the ticket for you, and then that's resolved fully automatically for you. If it doesn't find it, it's going to keep going. This will run for 12 hours, and the ticket will be open. By that time, most likely you'll probably look at the ticket and probably look at the device and manually remove that. And once that's manually removed, you should be all set. But that's pretty much what this crate does. And this also has a setup form along with it, just for the PSA portion. If you want to set up a certain, pull it up here. So this will allow you to set the PSA settings as well, just all the IDs, to just make it easier so you don't have to go manually get all the IDs and set them for input. It'll automatically do this, and you run through this. This will create a bunch of org variables for you that are used in the workflow. There's also an excluded sites. If you want to exclude sites that are mapped within this integration for WebRoot, which is going to change, the name's eventually going to change since they recently changed their name. you can go ahead and choose them here, and then it's not going to run for those excluded sites as well. And that is a overview of all those 3 crates that I have.
Thank you, Paul.
Sorry,
lot
that
of
was a lot.
information. No, everybody loved it. You're getting a lot of good comments. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? We're now going to move over to, we have 2 customer demos to go through now. Not, we will jump over and start with Nick. George, did you want to kind of introduce some of the discussion you were having about this, or did?
No, I think I'll just let Nick jump in and take it away. He's much more knowledgeable about it, but yeah, I'm really excited personally for him to show us something he's been working on with for quite some time. So Nick, we'll kick it over to you and show us what you're working with.
Okay. Hey, my name is Nick Kranz. I'm a consultant at a IT firm, been working in tech for about 20 years. Essentially what the crate or the crate-ish that I'm going to show is all compiled in this Git repository if you want to take it and deploy it for yourself or customize it. Let me get to screen share. So within the repo, it's really just how to configure and install. I didn't really put any of the value adds or anything, all that stuff we're going to discuss on the call. But essentially, this is the front end of the crate. This is what the crate creates. So Roost talks with Logic Monitor to essentially send Logic Monitor information about the workflow executions that are running. So this was kind of the child of an issue that I ran into. So I was developing an MFA report and a past due invoice workflow, both at the same time. MFA report was a very long running workflow, and I was experiencing timeouts. Past due invoice went beautifully. However, on a Friday, I decided to change some string interpolation and basically fat fingered it, and the workflow failed all weekend. Monday morning came around. I didn't check it till the very end of the day. Ended up looking kind of like a black eye because I wasn't aware that the workflow was failing. So I set out to create something that would tell me that. And this is where I landed. Essentially, I don't know what's going on with the mouse. Okay. Essentially what this is execution data. Anytime a workflow fails, an alert is created in Logic Monitor, and then I'm aware of that failed execution. This is the dashboard that shows all of that data. It also has these so real-time executions, so we can tell for the last hour that we haven't had any issues. But if we go like to the last 5 hours, we can tell that these 2 workflows have failed. They've been running and failed. These workflows at 0% here, this basically means they are they're running constantly. They're executing. The workflows have executions that are running. And then there's some essential up-down metrics for Roost, and then I can basically visualize the workflows that have ran and failed. I can see my trend of running executions, all that kind of stuff. And so this has been very helpful for the success of our automation efforts, so that basically I was getting to the point where if I developed any further automations, I wasn't going to be able to manage the automations that were already existing without alerting. And so this is how it was created. Essentially, what backs this is the primary workflow right here. There's 2 webhooks. So Logic Monitor has what's called an active discovery and a collector process. And the active discovery process on the back end is very, very simple. It's basically using Groovy to print strings. And the workflow ID is the identifier in Logic Monitor for the instance. that it tracks. So basically this right here. So essentially I run this workflow every 2 minutes. Well, I don't run it. The collection schedule on the logic module actually runs it. You can set a frequency up here of how fast or how much, how often you'd like to run the collection schedule. So active discovery runs every 15 minutes. Collection, you can set your own time based on the logic module configuration. And so when the collection process happens, the same methodology. All I'm doing is printing strings out, and those strings are represented in data points. And that's how I'm able to create the visual aspect that you see here in the dashboard. And so if you get into kind of the guts of this workflow, there's a little bit of a lot going on. Initially, I used the Roost task, which is list workflow executions with time savings to gather all this data. However, that wasn't reliable in the fact that you have to assign a value to the time savings key value property on the workflow configuration for that workflow execution to be caught in that task. And so I was speaking with Jesse from Roost, and he offered to publish this GraphQL. It's a generic GraphQL task. And essentially all it is the GraphQL that runs in your browser when you're browsing the Roost website. It's running that operation, but within a workflow. And so I'm able to gather everything you see here in the GUI in the workflow and then chop that up and serve it out. And how I'm serving it out currently is via template. There is a secret between Logic Monitor and Roost so that the traffic is secured. And essentially that's the solution really in a nutshell. So this runs every 2 minutes. There's a JSON coop. I also have a configuration drift. So kind of another value add that I wanted to enable was who changed what, when, and where. And I got pretty close. So within a 2 minute window, if Bob, Cheryl, and James both changed the same workflow, I'm only going to see that James changed the workflow because those values will be overwritten. But I do have, I can show you that the workflow changed. And that's helpful because it will, solve my original problem of, fat fingering string interpolation and a workflow failing throughout the entire weekend. One of the downsides of, this situation is in my environment, there's a lot of workflows that run. So I'm unable to capture all the successful executions in my particular environment. If, for instance, you run a very small amount of workflows, you definitely could capture all the successes. But I'm capturing the created at executions using timestamps, essentially. The webhook trigger, when the execution kicks off, there is a timestamp key value pair that is created. And so I essentially use that and then update an org variable and 2 minutes after 2 minutes after 2 minutes. And that's essentially how I get the data. This says a script, but on the back end, it's really a template. And so essentially, the data is landed here in the meantime before Logic Monitor goes and grabs it. After the original execution kicks off, so there's an output object that is utilized by this workflow, the syslog workflow, to as a completion handler to take that output object and then inject syslogs into Logic Monitor about the executions. And so that gives me really neat data. So I'm able to query the executions in a SQL style language and basically figure out, with this query here, I'm figuring out all of the execution failures in the past 24 hours and their execution URL. That way I don't have to dig through the GUI to go find basically this, because this is what I'm looking for. I can see who's updated a workflow and when. And then also, I can see the workflow execution count. Those counts aren't 100% accurate because I'm not grabbing all of the successful executions. But it is a start. And then, so here we got execution by status. You can figure out, what all statuses were created over a time range. And so that, in a nutshell, is the configure. Well, so here's the configuration drift as well. So configuration drift is just stored in an organizational variable. I have logic built into these workflows so that you don't need to create every single org variable that is required. So essentially, you need to create four org variables. You need to be able to create an API user and logic monitor. And then aside from that, you're enabling a completion handler, enabling a trigger webhook, setting a secret key, and then adding a couple of custom properties to the logic monitor object, which represent the secret key, the active discovery URL, and then the collection URL. So these are where the webhook endpoints are located, so that logic monitor can then grab them in the logic module and execute the web requests that bring us all the data. And so this has been very, very helpful throughout our automation journey. Here, this is more up down for logic monitor, or through logic monitor about Roost. So the logic module itself, there is an execution time. And that execution time measured in milliseconds, I have that compared with the HTTP and HTTPS response time of app.roost.io, essentially. So with all of these elements combined, it is very easy to spot when there is a potential issue going on, and that, you can correlate that with your failed executions or hung executions and, anything like that. It's very useful for troubleshooting. It's also useful figuring out if somebody fat-fingered string interpolation. But I guess last but not least, when somebody deletes a workflow from Roost, nobody knows. And that scared me. So what I did previous to this call was switch out the version of workflow that were workflow bundle, essentially, that was running in the environment. And all I'm doing is importing the new bundle, enabling the webhooks, replacing the webhooks and the key value pairs of logic monitor, enabling the completion handler, and then it's off to the races. It continues on with the existing org variables that are already in the system. So then I went and deleted the previous workflows. So these alerts right here, this timeout, no data, tells me that these workflows have been deleted. One thing that I haven't added, but is on my lists of features that would be quite helpful, is when this alert is generated, instead of generating a visual alert, I'm going to send it back to Roost and then have Roost send a log entry to my syslog server that the workflow is deleted. The only kind of downside or information I'm not able to gather is who deleted it, but that helps a little bit, because if somebody's making changes to workflows, you'll be able to see it in the updated log, and then you can put the puzzle together. And so this was my solution to how do I monitor Roost. Really, from a query perspective, so if I go into this workflow, so every execution that is created has a created at and an updated at attribute. And so essentially, I'm querying off the created at. The limitation that I spoke about earlier, why I can't grab all of the running executions, is due to this query and the input that is configured for it, essentially. Created at, I can query, is an input field, essentially, off of the GraphQL operation workflow executions. I can't query off of updated at. So that kind of creates a hole for me because I can't grab every execution that has updated but was created in a previous time. So here, to get all the timeout, canceled, and canceling statuses, I'm grabbing this .var. I should have named this a little better, but .var is the old timestamp, the timestamp that was in the org variable. The new timestamp is the timestamp that is created on the execution object that's currently running. So if I use the old timestamp, from the oldest timestamp back to 5 days ago, give me all canceled, timeout, canceling. And then I look at the updated at attribute, turn it into an integer, and grab our var timestamp, turn it into an integer, and figure out if that updated at is in the window of my gather, and then I add it to the list of entries that need to be processed by the workflow. And that's how I get the cancels, the canceling, the timeout, the failed execution statuses, and also why I cannot successfully grab all the successful. But
Sweet.
This is it.
Thanks so much, Nick. Really appreciate you sharing that and sharing the GitHub link as well. It's in the chat for folks who want to take a look in more detail.
Yeah. How long, like this obviously is a culmination of a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
How long did this kind of like take you, like in high level?
I'd have to ask Jesse when he published me that GraphQL task, but at the date he published me that task, I had been working on it for about a month. And actually the weekend prior, I was like excited for the meeting because didn't have anything to do that weekend. I stayed up, like I put 1 second on every single one of my workflows so that it would be tracked by the list of workflow executions. But that ended up causing further complications. So it was kind of out of frustration that he published it, but it was probably a good 6 months.
That's amazing. If anybody has any questions for Nick, we're going to push the other demo that we had to next week because we want to give some time for digesting all of this. This was a really awesome demo. So if anybody has any questions, like now's the time. I'll say I love your cursor.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your workflows with the community.
Absolutely.
I think I'll ping you separately, Nick. I think it would be cool to throw that with a little write-up in the coop or in like one of the forum channels so that people can see that and get more exposure to it, because that's really cool.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have anything? We've got 4 minutes left.
Anyone have a question? Stuck somewhere? Here's one. Just because I got reminded by someone posting a newbie question in the coop today or yesterday. Is there anyone that feels like they want to spend some time with a rock support person that hasn't asked yet? They can help you with your workflows. They can answer your questions because you're asking questions so that you succeed.
one final thing that I have actually, I have a feature request in, or it was just created literally minutes before this call. As of right now, when you set a timeout value on a workflow, and that timeout value is reached, that result ends in a cancel, not a timeout. So there's no way to differentiate cancels between timeouts. You can in the GUI. If you open up the execution, you'll be able to see the difference. It says workflow timed out, but there is no from a status perspective. It still shows canceled.
Yeah. That'll probably be part of a larger workflow status redo that we're looking at doing. There are other ways to fail a workflow than just failed or succeeded, right? Sometimes a workflow may end and it still succeeded, but not quite the way you wanted. So maybe it was a warning failure, right? Like a yellow failed versus a red failed. So we've also spotted a bunch of reasons why we need to do some work on statuses too.
Yeah, the framework is there. There is a timeout input value for workflow execution. So it's
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got 1 minute left. I'm super excited for Flow. I think we have one more open mic before Flow. So only one more time for me to continue to try to withhold the things I want to talk about. I'm sure Brian will be pinging me, trying to bribe me to talk about. All right.
I tried, guys. I tried to give you a few minutes.
Any way to maybe in the future allow sections of a workflow to continue after a failure? There are ways. I'm not a workflow expert, but there is a way to have a workflow continue after a failure. Yeah, if you catch the failure, you can just go to a failure step. And Peyton, if you need help or an example, please ping in your private channel. I'd love to have a rock person on. Now, what Chris is asking for is legit. It would be nice to be able to restart a workflow from a specific action. That would be nice. All right, it's top of the hour. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and we'll see you next Friday. Thanks for the presenters who presented, and please help your peers in the public channels. Thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend. Thanks, Ash.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Meow.
Meow, meow.